Hey everybody, what's up? This is Lupe again, here for the second episode of Giant Robot July. Um, I figure for this episode I'll do this game called Fall of Cybertron, Transformers Fall of Cybertron, because I'm a big Transformers fan and I don't really know who who doesn't like Transformers, especially if you like robot stuff. That's kind of one of the staples. And so I figured I'd do this one as my next video. Uh, Break away from the whole Gundam anime thing and do something American, I should say. Now, this game is by this company called High Moon Studios, which is kind of like they're a smaller company within the larger company of Activision Blizzard, which is kind of like the holding company for both Activision and Blizzard, hence the name Activision Blizzard. And High Moon Studios, they used to be called Sammy Studios a long time ago, and they've made this game, which is one of their newer games, and then they also made War for Cybertron, which is the I guess you could call it a prequel to this. It is actually the first game in this kind of series. I don't know if you could call it a trilogy because I'm not sure if they're gonna make another one yet. But that would be really cool to see. But anyway, there are quite a few differences between War for Cybertron and this game, Fall of Cybertron, and I just decided to do this one first because I feel that this game it really does everything that War for Cybertron did, but a bit better, a bit more, unique, and kind of showing off different things. Because War for Cybertron, is a really good game too, but it has where you basically have two campaigns. You have a Decepticon campaign and an Autobot campaign, which are the good and the bad guys, for those of you who don't know. For those of you who don't know the history behind Transformers, Autobots are the good guys, Decepticons are the bad guys. And so with War for Cybertron, you have two campaigns that go through different characters, but it is two separate campaigns, whereas this game has just one campaign that switches off. You start as the Autobots, then you switch to the Decepticons, and then you play as a certain Autobot, and then you kind of do the end game stuff. And what they did was each Transformer has its own little special ability, which it uses to kind of facilitate, I suppose, the level. Either it's something that either makes their level or just helps them get around a bit more. And then there's a counterpart to each side that kind of does the same thing. And before I talk more, this right here, the Throwback Blaster, this was the DLC that, at least that I got for pre-ordering the game, but it's really cool. It's not very strong, if you can see the stats there at the bottom. It's an average weapon, but I find it really cool because it has the old school G1 sound effects and coloration for the laser, and and it turns all your transformation and reloading noises into the old school G1 transformation noise, which is really cool for me. It's not a very strong weapon, which is why I don't use it all the time, and it can get annoying a bit if it makes that noise every time you reload or every time you switch what arm you're holding the gun on, because you can, kind of like in other shooting games, you can change which shoulder you're looking over. You can do that by shifting your gun to your other arm. But back to what I was saying before, the campaign for this game is you start as Bumblebee, who you play. That's kind of the tutorial level, and it's also the chronologically, it's kind of like the end of this game, because you played that, and then it goes back to 6 days before the events of the tutorial are happening. And after playing Bumblebee's part, you switch to Optimus, and Optimus is kind of like just fighting his way through the city, trying to protect the Autobots, base, pretty much, because it's under assault by the Decepticons. And at some point you find Metroplex, and then Metroplex is basically, he's a giant transformer who kind of like his name indicates, he's a city, basically. And then you use him to call down like airstrikes. You're basically you're marking targets for him to shoot at, and whatnot. And that's kind of Optimus' special ability. Then you go to Cliff Jumper, who is he's like the stealth guy in this game. He's not very strong compared to some of the other Transformers, but he has like a stealth field, and so a lot of his mission is kind of sneaking around, stealth killing things, and it does have, stealth kill, special animations and stuff, which are pretty cool. And then you will, you find a lot of enemies that are either impossible to kill or really, really, really hard to kill, and you're supposed to avoid them. Then you have Jazz, who's partnered up with Cliff Jumper, and he has a grappling hook. It's his special ability, and so you spend a lot of time like grappling around areas that normally you wouldn't even be able to explore, but because you have the grappling hook, you can explore these like giant constructs that are just kind of built off the ground and stuff. And his part is really cool too. Then it switches to the Decepticons, and you've got Vortex, who's one of the Combaticons, who in this game, really the Combaticons can really best be described as kind of like this Decepticon special ops unit or something. They're just like the crazy badasses of the Decepticon army, pretty much. And they can combine together to form this robot called Bruticus, which is like a giant transformer. Think, Voltron or things like that. Or you can think of, if you're thinking G1, you can think of I can't even remember his name. But the one the Constructicons, Deconstructicons, whatever they transform into for the Decepticons in G1. I know I should know this stuff, being a Transformers fan, but I just can't think of it right now. But yeah, and so playing as Vortex, he's a helicopter, and you just fly around, and you have to take out this bridge. So you're kind of sabotaging the efforts of the Autobots who've got this transport kind of, it's going to be going across the bridge, and you're trying to stop it. And then you play Swindle, who's another Combaticon, which was the guy at the beginning of the video, and you see him, he's actually sabotaging the transport itself. And then after playing Swindle, you play as and before I forget, Vortex. He has like the Shockwave as a special ability. Just he throws out this electric shock that can hit me. So his is just basically an attack. For him, all you're doing is fighting your way around through stuff. And Swindle, he has the grappling hook, kind of like Jazz does, but his level, as you could probably see, was a lot less dependent on it than Jazz's is. Of course, you might not know that if you haven't played the game, but Jazz has his thing is a lot more relying on it. And then you play, after Swindle, you play as Bruticus. And all Bruticus is doing is just walking around, destroying things on the transport and trying to shut it down, to try and stop it, because the transport is transporting a bunch of Energon, and the Combaticons want to stop it, and get all the Energon for the Decepticons so that the Autobots don't have it. Then, after playing as Bruticus, you play as, you do a little tiny blurb as Soundwave, and during Soundwave's part, you basically are repairing somebody. I don't want to spoil it for people who haven't played the game. It has been out for a bit, but you're basically doing repair work on somebody. And then after that, you play as the person you repair. And it's kind of like another just fighting your way through stuff mission. And then you play as Starscream, who in Starscream form is betraying somebody and just deciding, hey, if I can't be leader, then no one can. And so I'm gonna betray my teammates now. Because that's just what Starscream likes to do. And he has another stealth part, but it's greatly towards the stealth killy part, whereas Cliffjumper is more, in comparison at least, is more towards the stealth part. Then you have, as you're seeing, kind of the end of it, Grimlock's part, where you're finding out that that Shockwave, which is another Decepticon, has kind of experimented on you and your friends, and you're kind of rediscovering how to even transform yourself, but finding out that you've been changed completely, and that even your personalities have changed, and according to the story, one of your buddies didn't even make it out, and you're kind of finding out the story comes full circle of, because at the beginning of the game there's this point where you play as Optimus and you're thinking that Grimlock abandoned his post, and that's why all these Decepticons have gotten into the city without you knowing that they were even coming. And then this part you're finding out exactly what Grimlock had found, what he left his post to do for. And so the story is really cool. And then after Grimlock's party, you go back to the technic the technical beginning of the game, but the chronological end of the game. And you finish the part where you left off, kind of after playing Bumblebee's part, and you play as a couple of other Transformers. There's a part where you play as Jetfire, a part where you play as Bruticus, a part where you play as Soundwave, which is a lot more satisfying than the part that you do at the, in the early part of the game, or the earlier part of the game, and yeah, and this right here is actually the multiplayer of the game. At least one mode of the multiplayer. This is the co-op of the multiplayer, which I played, probably a few days ago from whenever this gets uploaded. So there's actually still a decent number of, there must still be a decent amount of people playing this online, which is a cool thought, because this is the first time I played this, and it's actually really fun. I really enjoy, co-op-y kind of you and your team against waves of enemies kind of stuff. And this one's a bit difficult because you have to, it's a pretty big map, and you have to find, you run out of ammo, and there's no free ammo. You have to buy ammo, and you have to figure out what gun you really want to use, and buy that gun, and then buy more ammo for that gun whenever it runs out. And so it's actually it can be pretty stressful, especially these later rounds, because I just joined into this game at round wave 8, 9 of the rounds, and so especially starting here, it's really hard to get yourself kind of quick started. Whereas if you start at the beginning, you can kind of, alright, I want such and such gun, I have time to find it, and we're not dealing with so many enemies. And of course here, you see me making the huge mistake of trying to find a weapon, desperately trying to find a weapon, and then choosing the sniper rifle. And then these things show up, these giant enemies, these giant Autobots. And it was bad, to say the least. And then you've got, basically for this mode, you have, it kind of changes your special abilities. You get one person who has healing abilities, one person who has, I think, just a shield, one person who, I think their combat abilities are better, and then maybe one person who's speedier, I'm not really sure. But basically, at the beginning of the game, you get the option to choose these different characters, and there's 4 different characters that you can kind of see here, and so yeah, that's really fun. But but a little bit more about High Moon Studios too before I end this. I think I'm getting pretty close to needing to stop talking. But High Moon, they also made. I talked a bit about how they were part of Activision Blizzard, but they've also made. They made their most recently released game to date is the Deadpool game, based on the Marvel comic book character Deadpool, which I haven't played yet. I'm looking forward to playing it at some point, because I really like Deadpool, and then they, in the past, the earliest game of theirs that I could find, at least, was this game called Dark Watch, which I don't know if you know about it, but it was on the PS2 and on the original Xbox. It was kind of like a horror steampunk western kind of game, which I haven't actually played it, but I kind of, looking this stuff up kind of made me remember it and want to go back and play it, because I remember being really interested when it first came out. But basically, you're this guy, you're this train robber, and you get bitten by you're robbing this train, um, that's being used by this group called Darkwash, hence the name of the game. And they're kind of like the paranormal police kind of thing, and they're transporting this vampire, and you robbing the train ends up letting this vampire get out, and then he bites you, and you have these supernatural abilities, and it's kind of like, you know, a run and gun kind of western game, but also with this supernatural twist, because you are a vampire, and then there's also some different choices that you have to make in the game, uh, where you can kind of choose your fate. You know, if you want to be the good guy, the hero, or you want to become the evil vampire type character. And here you can see this is me scrambling, trying to find ammo or a better gun. I was trying to find a better gun, but I eventually just settled that, hey, I had to pick up some ammo and do something with it. And then you can't even hit the broadside of a barn with this thing. I'm so terrible when it comes to like multiplayer sniper rifle. I'm just bad. Um, which is weird because I really love using the sniper rifles, especially in single player, and I like to try and use them whenever I play online, but I always like cannot hit moving targets whatsoever. I'm just terrible. Oh, the other thing, though, surprisingly, I didn't know this, but High Moon Studios also made um, the Transformers Dark Side of the Moon game, or Dark of the Moon, whatever the name of that Transformers movie is. I haven't actually seen that one because I'm not a big fan of the Transformers, the live action movies. Um, you know, but they they did make that. It didn't really get that many good reviews, which is kind of surprising because they made War for Cybertron before that. So from what I hear, the Dark of the Moon one was just kind of rushed, and they just had no choice but to do it. But I will go ahead and end this here, since I've kind of rambled and I've just run out of footage. So, alright, thanks for watching. Talk to you guys later.